Hello, this is Katie. Welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a little bit longer video and it is not sped up because I'm going to be showing you how I made from scratch a shredder card that is similar to the Lawn Fawn dies in the latest release. And I may end up getting the dies, but I wanted to see if I could figure out how to do it kind of close enough, good enough for me. Just manually. And so I have some measurements. I have measurements for everything, and I'll be going over how to put it together with you. It includes the card that will open up and also the belly band that goes around it. This one was a little tighter, and I'm going to be scoring the other one so that it is not so tight. But this was my first go at it. So I made a Christmas card with a really cute paper pad from Michaels, and so this was like my prototype. So we're going to be starting with what you would cut for a normal card base. We're just scoring it differently. So it is 8.5 by 5.5. Normally you would score at 4.25 to get like a normal book opening card. But we're going to be scoring it differently. So it is 5.5 wide and 8.5 long. And if I'm going slow or too slow for any parts of these, it's because I thought I might have wanted to speed this up, but I decided not to because I don't want to go too fast. And you can always pause and measure things and get things ready as well while you're watching this video. So we're going to take the 5.5 by 8.5, and we're going to score both sides where I'm folding it here. We're going to score that at 2 1/8, which is half of 4.5. So to make that kind of gate fold card, we're going to split that 4.5 inch width of a card in two to 2 1/8, and we're going to score each side at 2 1/8 so that we can fold those in. So I'm just going up to 2 1/8 if you can't see the measurements because they're not darker. I'm zooming in a little bit, but it might still be hard to see. So any scoreboard that you have at 2 1/8, and then flip it over and do the same to the other side. And then to get the card base ready, I'm going to fold that in, and I'm going to fold on the bump. So the bump is on the inside of my fold. This is just how I fold, and it keeps the outside looking better and the inside looking better as well. So now we have our base, our gatefold card. And I have pre-cut some pieces of paper. So you're going to want some sort of background for the inside. So this is, and I was trying to figure out if it was right side up or upside down, but it's the same either way. And it's 4.25 by 5.5. Although when I cut this, you know that there's always like a 1/16 of an inch too much somewhere. So I'm just gonna, it's just a little bit too wide, tiny bit too wide for that. So I'm gonna slice off here like a 1/16, if not less, of an inch, just so it fits inside there. And then I'm going to stick it down to the inside base of the card. And this is going to be a Halloween card, if I didn't mention that, or if you can't tell. So 4.25 by 5.5, but for the middle. And you may or may not have to trim it, just because we have those two scores on either side that may have taken away some of that width. And so that's why I had to trim off that little tiny piece, trying to get my mechanical pencil to work. Whenever I'm going to cover something up, I'm going to try and write the measurements on what I'm doing, because it's going to get covered up by paper anyway. So because of those folds, they do take up a little tiny bit of space. I did have to trim off that little tiny strip, but I'm going to run my tape runner onto the base where I'm going to put this down, rather than, I suppose it doesn't really matter. In this case, you could put the tape runner on the back of the pattern paper or on your base, and just get enough to cover it. And then we're going to center that, just making sure that it's not on the fold. We want to center it in between the two score folds, essentially. So now we have the inside base, and I'm going to go ahead and put on the outside pieces. So these are 5.5 by 2 1/8. And because the gatefold, the way I score it, without these on there, did have like a teeny little gap you can see in the middle. I went 5.5 by just a tiny, teeny hair longer than 2 1/8. So when you cut these panels for the front, you can go just literally like a couple hairs wider than 2 1/8. And then it'll cover that gap in the middle that you can see right now when I have the doors pressed down. And then you'll have that covered. So I'm going to put the tape runner down onto the base of one of the doors. And then we're going to attach, I wanted to make sure I had them looking the way I wanted to, design-wise. We're going to attach it from the edge going in, and that's where those extra hairs, in this case on the right, are going to cover that gap in the middle. So then we're going to put some tape runner again on the other door onto the base. And just make sure you put enough adhesive down. I am an adhesive user. And we're going to go from the edge, line that up, and then press that down. It's very sticky. And then that way when we close it, there is no gap anymore because we measured just a tiny bit wider, a hair wider. So now we have our card base to work with. So now we need to create these flags, and this is just my prototype. So I'm going to pull this out and show you. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so I'm going to pop that out. You don't want to do that after you make the card, but we do have a 1/4 inch that is going to be used to stick that flag to the edge. So the measurement for the flag piece, and it's just 2 inches tall. You can make it as tall as you want, but I just went with 2 inches, and it's going to be 3 inches wide because the flag part that you see is actually 2 3/4, but we have that bent 1/4 inch that we're going to score and fold and stick to the wall of the card or onto the inside of the doors. So that 1/4 score at 1/4 inch. So I wrote that on there. It's going to get covered up with pattern paper anyway. So you want 2 inch by 3 inch, 2 of these pieces of cardstock. And I just guessed with my pencil line, obviously I'm going to score at the actual 1/4 inch on both of my pieces. And then these are going to be facing each other. So we're going to fold at the flag. I just wanted to make sure I folded the bump inward, but it works out just fine. You can still see the measurements, but those are going to get covered up. So we're going to fold at our 1/4 inch here. And then we want to use the score tape, the 1/8 inch score tape. And I don't know if I do that first or if I'm going to show you how to cut the banner first. So here, I'm going to show you how to cut this part first. So the width from the end to the corner is actually 15/16 of an inch. So I am going to make a line somewhere about the middle, so 1 inch in because this is 2 inches tall. Somewhere around the middle, I'm going to make a line at 15/16 of an inch. And this is so that when the flags come together, when you close the card, that they actually meet and they don't leave a gap. It's kind of like the Magic Iris die. When you close it, you want all of the shutter to come together so there's no hole, ideally. And if I had a larger square punch, this would probably be easier to do. But what I'm going to do is just find the center. You can eyeball it and cut up to that 15/16 of an inch. And then from each corner, which you can also eyeball, if you've cut banners manually before, this should be easy for you. You can also practice on a few scraps. You just want to cut from the corner to the center that you trimmed it to. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect because this is a handmade die-free card, except for one die that we'll be using, but it's a little circle die. You can cut a pretty good banner if you just eyeball. And this one I kind of missed a little bit, so I'm going to cut an extra tiny strip to make that work. Okay, so now we have our 2 flag banners, and now we want to attach them. So we need to use the little score tape. This is, I believe, 1/8 inch score tape, but this is the score tape that you use for several of the Lawn Fawn Interactive dies when you're making the card. So a lot of you will have this on hand already. If you don't, you just want to make sure you use some sort of tape versus glue. I suppose you could use glue. You just want to wait a while for it to dry before you move on. This is the same reason why in the Magic Iris die, they want you to use those glue dots or micro dots. You could use a bunch of micro dots here too. It's the same stuff. Because you don't want to have to wait for that glue to dry for the functioning to work. This is just the paper pad from Michaels, the Pinkaboo that I'm using. I don't know if I showed it to you before, so I wanted to show you. So then, with the tape exposed, you can start this wherever you want. It doesn't matter where up or down the card it is. Just put one down. And then you want the other one to line up. So you want to match it. So see how I've got the left top flag is on top and the right bottom flag is on top. So they're kind of opposite overlapping. So then you want to line it up so that they are smooth and flush, and then push that one up against, and then we want to pick that up. So we're going to press down that adhesive. So now they're both stuck down to the walls of the doors. And then that top left flap and the bottom right flap will each be on top. So they're kind of opposite. So hopefully that makes sense. And right now they're going to come apart, but we're going to stick something over it while those are put together to kind of hold that in place so that those don't pop out, obviously. You saw in my example and in the prototype, I had to actually pull out the flag to show you. So it won't easily come apart once we have the other piece on there. So I didn't pre-plan for the flag coverings when I was prepping for the video. So I'm going to go ahead and flip through and pick a pattern paper that works. And I just want pink. One of them is going to have a little bit of a web on it. So I'm going to cut it to, since we have now stuck down that 1/4 inch, this width is now 2 3/4 instead of 3. So 3 minus a 1/4 inch, which is already stuck down to the door, is now 2 3/4. So I only need to cut 2 inches by 2 3/4 for both of these. And then we're going to stick that rectangle on top of the flag and just cut off the banner from behind because we'll have a guide and you'll see what I mean by that. So here I want to save those pumpkins because those are pretty cute. I'm just going to cut a 2-inch tall strip, which is going to include some white spider web, which actually looks pretty cool. So I'll take it. And then by 2 3/4. So I'm going to cut 1, 2 by 2 3/4, and then another 2 by 2 3/4. And then I'll get rid of that extra little tiny strip. I'm going to show you how I store the pieces of a 6x6 pad of paper in the back of the pad with these sticker thingies that I got from Target a few years ago in the dollar spot when it was like teacher time. And it's very handy, these little sticky pockets for the back of your 6x6 paper pads to store your extra pieces of paper that will fit in there. You can also create your own pocket in the back of your 6x6 paper pads to hold the rest of the paper. Or you can store them in like sandwich Ziploc baggies as well. So I'm just running tape runner over as much as I can of the banner that's already stuck down to the card. And that's why I wrote all over this, because it's going to get covered up anyway. So I'm going to line it up with the far left of the banner. So then we have that rectangle. Then I'm going to do the same for the banner on the right. So I'm just going to put some tape runner directly onto the banner. I don't want to stick it to the rectangle because we are going to trim off some of this. So in this case, putting the adhesive onto the banner that's already in the card is going to benefit you a little more. It's very sticky. I get my fingers stuck to my tape runner stuff all the time. So then I'm going to stick that one down. And then now from behind, take your detail scissors and trim, just following the guide of that white card base that was already there, and trim off the triangle of patterned paper inside of the banner flag. This was really hard to do, not putting my head in the shot and looking at an overview of it. I was trying to do it kind of from an angle. So then just do the same to the other side, or the other flag banner. Very carefully. We don't want to trim off any of the base. We're just cutting the pattern paper here. Okay, so you can get rid of those triangles, and now you have your banner. Again, I'm going to fold it with the top left and the bottom right are on top, so they're opposite. So now we've got our base. So now we need to create, I'm going to take a second to shove this back in there. This is just my prototype. I'm not going to be using it for anything, so it's going to get abused here for a second to get that back in there. Okay, so now we're going to create this top piece that is going to hold the banner flags underneath it so that they don't escape out. So we have, I cut a 2.5 by 3 piece of cardstock. You can sort out whatever size works for you. If your banners were wider, you're going to need a wider piece. We just need to be able to put the score tape on the top and the bottom, and be able to stick that down to the back base of the card. So, depending on how wide your banners are, this would need to be wider if you went wider than 2 inches. I left a 1/2 inch on the top and the bottom, so this is why this is 3 inches tall. So I've decided that this teal pumpkin is going to be the peekaboo item on my sample that was a penguin that I had cut out of pattern paper. I just wanted to keep it kind of similar to the pattern that we had going on. So I used something from the pattern paper to be our peekaboo item. And then I am cutting a 3 inch by 2 inch. I think I thought it was 2.5 inches wide. This is 3 by 2. And so I want this to be sturdy, so I'm going to just glue this down, or tape runner it down to the white cardstock. Then we need to use a die to cut out the peekaboo hole, basically. So I'm going to use a stitched circle die from Little Anchor Designs. And basically it's going to be centered. So first I'm going to cut out my pumpkin, or you're going to sort out whatever image you want to be that peekaboo. I'm just going to call it peekaboo item that you're going to see through when the card opens up. And this will take me just a minute here. Again, I didn't want to speed up this video. I know it's about 1/2 hour long, but I wanted to make sure that I went slow enough and I was able to explain everything that I was doing since there are measurements involved. And I do believe that the die for the card, the Lawn Fawn card, is actually, the card is smaller, it's skinnier. So what I'm showing you is actually like a standard sized 5.5 by 4.25 card that would fit in an envelope. I believe the Lawn Fawn one is skinnier. So these measurements are going to be a little bit different. So the pumpkin is going to be the peekaboo item, and I'm going to put glue all over the back and try and figure out how to get this centered before I figure out a better solution. And I only get a little bit of glue on the banner, so it's okay. I'm just trying to sort out how to put it down onto the purple cardstock without it, you know. And it is the hole that's left by the banners is a little small for this size pumpkin. That's why the penguin was better. I'm just going to draw a circle in pencil where the center is and just center the pumpkin. But because this is liquid glue, I'm able to put the flag banners over it, and I can actually wiggle the pumpkin around to kind of get like a better view of the pumpkin. So I open it and then I kind of just scooch the pumpkin a little bit, move him just a little bit more, and then I think that's where I settled on it. So you either want a smaller item, or if you want to take what I've done and run with it, you can figure out how to get like a bigger, you know, a bigger center created by the banners. But here I'm just going to center the circle. I'm going to eyeball it and take some washi tape and stick it down just where the middle looks like it is. This washi tape is pretty sticky, so I'm going to stick it to my hand first before I stick it to the paper. And then I will run this through my mini die cutter because it's small enough, it'll fit through. And I think I'm going to run this through twice just in case, because this is technically 2 pieces of paper, cardstock and pattern paper stuck together. And I want to make sure that the die goes all the way through, which it did just fine. So we have our circle cut out of our holder piece that's going to hold those flag banners in place. And I think I was trying to figure out what to do with the piece I had left, but I just set that aside. Okay, so now we're going to take our score tape and just do a strip along the top edge and the bottom edge. And then you can use your bone folder to press that down and just make sure that it's down really good. And if you have fingernails, you can pick it up that way, or you can use a pick or tweezers, however you like taking off the backing. And then again, we have our banner flags with the left top and the bottom right are on top, as I showed you a few times so far. And then we just want to center this and stick down that top and the bottom, and now our banner flags are secured to create that shutter. So when you close the card, they're closed, and then when you open it, you get to see the teal pumpkin. So it's not a big hole. I probably should have either picked a smaller image or figured out how to make the, the banner flags not take up so much room. But I still really like how this card turned out, and my first one. So what I need now is a piece of paper with more of like a solid background, but I still want the color. So I'm going to use the one with the spider on it for a sentiment for the inside of the card. And the white doors on the inside are where you can like write your message or write whatever you want your personal message in your card to be. So you could put pattern paper on the inside of those. I'm going to be using the sentiment Happy Halloween from Spook Up Some Fun, which is a Simon Says Stamp Halloween set. I think I got a D-stash on Etsy from someone. The insides of the doors, you just want to make sure that if you do use pattern paper there, that you put it down before you tape down the banner flags with that 1/4 inch fold, obviously, because that part would come after. So in my case, on both my cards, I just left the inner white doors, just the plain white cardstock. And you can use it to write a message, but you can use pattern paper there if you'd like. I just chose not to. That, or I forgot and didn't think to do it. So I'm going to stamp this sentiment, and one was plenty. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that stamp off camera. And then use some tape runner and stick down our sentiment to the inside of the card. I was baffled here. I don't know how it was doing it, but my tape runner was like putting down pencil marks into the glue. That's not like cat hair. Those are like pencil marks. And I just could not for the life of me. It was like ghostly. It was freaking me out. I don't know how tape runner inside of my gun got pencil marks on it. Anyway, it was baffling me. So it took me a second to think about that. And then I stuck down the sentiment and we're closing the card. So now we need to create the belly band. And here I am going to make it a little looser than that because that one was a little tight and I kind of have to fold the card a little bit to get it back on. So for these ones, these are, this is going to take me a second, 6 inches wide. But the width of the card is 4 1/4, but I'm going to add 1/8 of an inch on either side. So that'll come to 4 1/2. So after 6 inches, what's left of 4 1/2 is 1 1/2 inches. So at 3/4 of an inch on both ends, I'm going to score, which is half of 1 1/2. So now the width of the front of my belly band is 4 1/2 instead of 4 1/4 inches. So it's going to give kind of that width around the edges so that it can hug the card freely, but also slide on and off a little easier. And this part, I'm just going to make kind of manual. I'm just going to put tape runner on the back side and then stick down my other 6 inch. This is 6 inches by 2 inches. You can make it as fat as you want, but I chose 2 inches. I need to do this a better way. I'm just going to stick this down and cut it from the other side. Trim off the ends from the other side. You could measure it and stick it down instead, but I'm just going to be very careful not to cut my belly band and sneak in here and just trim off these ends basically. So this is a 2 inch tall belly band. And again, you want to leave 4 1/2 for the front width. And then you can just complete the back however you want. But this way, this slides on a lot easier than my first card. And there you have it. This is a very shiny card. I love this one. So hopefully you will try this. If you try this, let me know down below or send me a picture, tag me on Instagram. I will leave all my information down below. I want to know if you try this with what I came up with. I think that would be so cool if you did. And if you haven't wanted to purchase the new dies and you want to make a card like this, hopefully I was able to help you out. You can write your messages in there. And yeah, tag me, let me know, comment, email me, whatever you want. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful and not too long, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.